I think they're going to regret all these lawfare cases, because these lawfare cases, once they're decided in favor of Trump, as they have been now 19 times in a row at the Supreme Court, we're going to end up with an executive branch president who has vastly more authority and publicly recognized authority to act than we've ever had before. And that president's Trump. And with Democrats at an 18% approval rating, I mean, who's their candidate? Gavin Newsom? I think the Democrats really screwed up. I think they're in an existential crisis at the moment, and it's not going to turn out well for them.
One of the reasons why there is no front runner, nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list, is because at this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public.
Who's leading the Democratic Party? I'm just curious.
There are lots of leaders. And
there's generally a leader of the Democratic Party. You know, like, oh, that's the leader of the Democratic Party. Who comes to mind?
Let me say this. I think it is a mistake for us who want to figure out how to get out and through this and get out of it, to put it on the shoulders of any one person.
Let's see. All right, so let's get to some more recent wins for Trump. This is not yet a win. This is just something that looks like it's developing into good news. The Office of Management and Budget issued a statement of administrative policy indicating that suggests that Trump would sign into law House Resolution, House Bill 3486, if it were to come to his desk, the Stop Illegal Entry Act. And what that does is it enormously increases the punishments for unlawful entry and repeated unlawful entry into the U.S. The bill would create a mandatory minimum 5-year prison term for any alien who enters the U.S. illegally and gets convicted of a felony. It also increases the maximum prison term for illegal re-entry from 2 to 5 years. The bill also establishes a mandatory minimum term of imprisonment of 10 years and allows a life sentence for an individual who was convicted of a felony before deportation or convicted of illegal entry at least 2 times before removal, and who subsequently enters or tries to enter the U.S. So what I would say to this is it's a step in the right direction. Anything that makes the penalties more severe for being a third world migrant invader of my nation, I'm all for. What I don't understand is, why don't we simply make it a life sentence at hard labor the first time they unlawfully enter my nation or overstay a visa or are denied the privilege to stay, like Maryland man Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia got his final order of deportation in 2019. In 2025, when he was arrested, he'd been living in the U.S. for 6 years with a final order of deportation in his pocket. Why isn't that a life sentence at hard labor? Breaking big rocks into little rocks, making gravel, becoming a gravel production engineer. We can even give him a certificate from Harvard. Why are we pity-pattying around? I think the proper answer to all this is that we do not want third world migrant invaders. And if we don't want them, why is it only 2 years or 3 years or 5 years? If we don't want them, why don't we just tell everybody, if you do it, you're going to be in prison forever? I don't think it's extreme. Why is it extreme? I don't want them here. Frankly, I think a lifetime sentence at hard labor is the polite option. It's not the only possible option for sanction, for invading my nation. So I thought that was interesting. Here's another win for Trump. So I had covered this earlier, maybe over the weekend, I forget, in a recent show. This woman who's on the Federal Trade Commission was fired by Trump without Trump providing any cause, and she sued in court to an unelected black robe, tyrannical inferior federal district trial court judge court to get her job back. And of course, the feckless trial court judge, federal trial court judge, issued an order, an injunction to Trump, ordering him to hire her back, to give her all her executive authority, as if it had never been removed, which is ridiculous for reasons we already talked about. If Trump can't fire these people, nobody can fire these people. And if they're exercising executive authority, that can only be constitutionally done with the consent of the one person our Constitution gives all executive authority to, the president. So this crazy judge had ordered Trump to hire her back, delegate his executive authority to her against his will, and the Supreme Court handed Trump another victory. Now, they're making it seem like a temporary victory because it was just a like a one paragraph statement by Chief Justice John Roberts. Do I have it here? Yes, this is it. It's ordered that the July 17th order of the district trial court judge ordering Trump to rehire this woman is stayed, frozen, pending further process of these lawsuits. And people are saying, well, she's only, temporarily refired. I think that's a mistake. If you don't understand what Chief Justice Roberts is doing here, the message he's trying to say, every decision that the Supreme Court has made in every one of these firing cases has been to recognize and reaffirm the authority of the president to fire these people. Every one of these people who've been fired by Trump, who sued to get their job back, not just get back pay, but to get the executive power back, every one of them, by the time it gets to the Supreme Court, has lost. Sometimes they lose at the Court of Appeals. But if they haven't lost then, by the time it gets to the Supreme Court, they've lost. Humphrey's executor is going to come up for the Supreme Court for repeal, and they will be repealing it. It will be going away. Certainly on the fundamental doctrine that the misreading Humphreys. I mean, one possibility is the Supreme Court could say, listen, we're not going to repeal Humphreys, but we're going to limit it to what it actually covers. Humphreys, the guy did not get his job back. He did not get executive authority against the will of the president. I mean, he couldn't because he was dead, but he didn't. So Humphreys cannot hold for being able to compel the president to delegate executive authority against his will. The next big case was a guy called Weiner. Sometimes I call the pair of these cases Humphreys-Weiner. Weiner was fired and he sued in federal court over it and he won. But what he sued for and what he won was money, not his job back, not a compelled delegation of executive authority from the president. So the Supreme Court will either repeal Humphreys or they'll make clear what Humphreys is limited to. At the most, you get money. And that's it. What else? Oh, another win for Trump, this time at the Court of Appeals level. So a bunch of states, look at all these states, had sued Trump in these firing cases. Trump fired a whole bunch of federal employees, most of them on a probation, so 1 year, 2 year probation status. Because Biden, President Joe auto-penned Biden, because no private market companies were hiring people. So to buttress his employment figures, he hired millions of people into federal employment, just bloated the federal government. And of course, those jobs are actually a net negative for GDP because those salaries are not paid from profits of a private enterprise that's delivering value to the market. Government employee salaries are paid from taxes that are taken away from private sector activity. So government jobs are a net negative on GDP, but we pretend they're not. We pretend, oh, look, 500,000 people got hired. Well, they got hired by the federal government. That's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. So Trump came in, he fired a whole bunch of these people. And these, for a bunch of states, there's a lot of states where there's a lot of federal employees. Think of Baltimore, right, where the Center of Disease Control is. So you fire a whole bunch of these employees. And a lot of these states, they get a lot of unemployed people, the former federal employees. And the states tried to sue in federal court and say, listen, this is harming us. Now we no longer get our state tax revenue from those salaries, for example. Now we have to provide unemployment benefits to those people who were fired by Trump. That harms us. And because that's a harm, we have standing to sue Trump in federal court. And what the Court of Appeals in the Fourth Circuit decided just yesterday was no, you don't. No, you don't. States do not have standing to sue the federal government for firing federal employees. You just do not. So another win for Trump, just like he got that big immigration enforcement win yesterday. This is a big win for him in the firing cases, lawfare cases. Some more on this. A federal appeals court just ruled that states do not have standing to sue the federal government for firing federal employees. Another win in court for the Trump administration. Imagine if the states, any individual state, could sue and compel Trump to keep on the federal payroll these hundreds of thousands of people that Trump does not want in the executive branch. I mean, there'd be no point to having a president. And this guy raises a good point in all these reversals of all these lower federal judges. So many judges have wasted so much time and money bringing President Trump and his administration into court for cases they rule are illegal conduct by Trump, but eventually they're overturned. It begs the question, do judges not know the rule of law, or are they just political activists? Well, of course, the answer is B. They're just political activists, and they should be removed from the bench for failing to carry out their judgely duties with integrity. Another win for Trump. This is just a grant of certiorari. This is just a writ of certiorari is a request to the Supreme Court to hear a particular case. Well, the Supreme Court has just agreed to hear in an expedited manner these lawsuits against Trump about his tariffs. We've covered some of those before. Tariffs are a tool of foreign policy. Congress has delegated to the president enormous tariff authority, and Trump's been exercising it. So unless Congress, which ultimately has control over tariffs, authority over tariffs under the Constitution is in Article 1, the legislative branch. But they're free to delegate that authority to the president, and they have. They broadly have. So now the president has both the congressional authority and his own intrinsic authority under Article 2 as being our commander-in-chief and our chief negotiator in foreign policy. So, of course, technically, we don't know what the Supreme Court's going to do when it actually has to decide this tariff case. But what do you think it's going to do, given what it's been doing in the spending cases and the firing cases? I think there's no real question it's going to affirm the authority of the Article 2 branch executive to leverage tariffs for national security, foreign affairs purposes. By the way, I'll just mention as an aside, I'm sure many of us have had the thought that, man, the Democrats really screwed up when they stole the election from Trump in 2020. I mean, they had him kind of hamstrung in his first term as the 45th president. Things were going gangbusters for the first 2 years, and then the COVID-19 death virus hoax happened, completely debilitated the economy. Nothing more could be done in a productive way the last 2 years of president's term. If they had just let him limp in and also been the 46th president, he would have been hamstrung for that term too. Instead, they stole the election from Trump with these magical 20 million votes that Joe Biden got that no presidential election has ever seen before, and we have never seen since. And in that 4 years, Trump really got his shit together. He learned his lessons. He thought he could be elected president the first time, and well, the government would just follow his orders, right? He didn't know how bad the deep state was, but he knows now. So a good argument can be made that the Democrats really effed themselves by stealing that 46th presidential slot away from him. Of course, he still would have been the 45th president, just the second term of the 45th president. Stealing that away from him to give it to President Joe Autopen Dementia Biden, because it brought them the Trump we have today. And this is a president who is asserting the most muscular Article 2 executive branch authority in modern American history. It's unbelievable. The presidency, it's like it's on steroids under Trump compared to what even Reagan was doing. It's amazing. And so just like it was a mistake to steal the presidency from Trump and give it to Biden because Trump came back stronger than ever, I think they're going to regret all these lawfare cases. Because these lawfare cases, once they're decided in favor of Trump, as they have been now 19 times in a row at the Supreme Court, we're going to end up with an executive branch president who has vastly more authority and publicly recognized authority to act than we've ever had before. And that president's Trump. And with Democrats at an 18% approval rating, I mean, who's their candidate? Gavin Newsom? I think the Democrats really screwed up. I think they're in an existential crisis at the moment, and it's not going to turn out well for them.